In today's Tactical Tuesday episode, let's talk buying cards. I don't do too many market analysis videos anymore, mainly because when I first did it, there was such a shortage of cards that values were always high for staple cards like Starter Deck Greymon and Omnimon. Demi-Meramon used to be $5, TK Takashi peaked at $17 for just a rare. The market was insane. And then Bandai printed everything into the ground. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad thing to have more supply for everyone to get cards. But I feel like it's going to be a while before a lot of older cards ever retain value, if they do. But for today's video, I'm going to tackle when you should pick up cards, and when you shouldn't. Many lessons have been learned here, so I'm going to break this down into a few parts. 1. Main set cards. 2. Pre-release cards. 3. Alternate art cards. And 4. Tournament cards. If there's a specific one that interests you, simply check out the chapters in the description to jump to that specific category. Main set cards have the highest peak price during pre-release. Never buy main set cards during the week of pre-release. Remember when Gabumon Bond of Friendship during pre-release was $40 and people were actually buying them? When general release happened, Gabumon Bond of Friendship was a measly $3, and today, it's $1.02 tops. For players, I highly recommend picking up a main set of cards a week or two after general release. Typically you'll find cards have stabilized by then. Never ever pick up a main set card for pre-release, just wait for everything to settle, and then pick up what you need. Very rarely do cards go for obscene value, and while the Special Booster 1.0 and 1.5 had this happen, should the supply continue meeting the demand, don't expect this to happen again in the future. The big question for a lot of collectors is pre-release cards. When is the best time to pick them up? If you're trying to pick up pre-release cards typically find a sweet spot in the first 2 to 3 days after they're released, and are at their cheapest for a select few cards. These are the sleeper cards and can be a huge gamble, and can also have a huge return. Unfortunately, if a pre-release card is played in the competitive scene, it usually will hit a certain value and stay there. For me, Howling Memory Boost was one of the last pre-release cards I needed to complete my playset. Unfortunately, it was a $30 to $40 card when I finally got around to it. Now that Gabumon had shifted out of the meta spot, it ultimately fell in price to $20 to $25. But what about BT7? Here's where things can get really dicey. X-Antibody currently has a lot of hype with BT8 and onward, with BT9 already releasing spoiler news of X-Antibody Digimon. Because of this, you can definitely expect a lot of pre-release cards from BT7 to stay where they are for a while. Doraemon? He's gonna be expensive. Greymon? Also expensive. Ultimately with pre-release cards, there's the sweet spot where you can gamble in the first 2 to 3 days after pre-release, or you just wait until a set or two when the pre-release card is no longer relevant to pick it up at the end of the format, or 1 or 2 sets later. Personally, from my experience, you can miss badly picking up pre-release cards early, but if you're the gambling type, go for it. But for me, I'll always wait a set or two after and pick it up then. This takes us to alternate art cards, event pack included, but not the big winner ones. Alternate art cards from the main set can be beautiful, and moving forward past BT5, this is where the cards obtained a texture foiling. Alternate art cards can fetch a hefty penny early on set release, and if the deck is one of the top tier decks, it usually comes at a higher price. But once the deck gets rotated out, its price comes crashing down. Remember when BT1 Omnimon was $140 at one point? Now, you can find them popping at $60. Even Gabumon Bond of Friendship hit $36 after pre-release and stayed there until Nationals. After Nationals, the card has slowly dropped to almost a $20 alternate art card. On the flip side, you'll notice Doraemon is one of the most hyped cards for BT7, and moving forward to BT8, could be one of the most expensive alternate art cards to try and get. My recommendation for main set alternate art cards is to wait until the deck or set is super cheap. EX1 will probably be at the cheapest now for the majority of their alternate arts. Event cards, on the other hand, typically will be at a specific price point due to continuous release in events. But with Event Pack 1 no longer in circulation, these cards could see a potential rise in the future. But for Event Pack 2, I'd probably hold off on purchasing these, unless Jesmon is the main one you're after. This boy could go back up if some really good support is dropped in the starter deck. Last but not least, tournament cards. Evo Omnimon, Nationals Agumon Bond of Bravery, Top 8 War Greymon. Cards like these are limited to quantity. Picking up your playset or a single copy earlier is better in all honesty than waiting. There has been no news of EVO events coming back yet, and as a result the number of Omnimons in circulation is very low. Likewise, the total copies of War Greymon is currently estimated to be 144 copies, with a majority of people I've talked to only willing to sell theirs with just a little shy of $2,000. Most Omnimons at this point are going for $7,000 to $8,000 if not higher on the private market. In general, I'm more of a collector in this game, and the playing aspect is more for the cool combos or interactions. Hopefully this video gives you some idea of when to purchase a specific card. I've learned the hard way of buying it too early or too late. And these are just my tips for how to collect if you're just starting out. This is Digi-Panda, logging out.